Well, hello and welcome back to the webinar series with Three Dog Right. I am your host, Lisa Epelinski, content coach and creator, and America's digital content futurist. And I'm very excited to have my good friend and my publicist, Russell Trahan, on today from
Hello.
PR Public Relations. Russell, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
And
you for inviting me.
absolutely. And can you tell our audience a little bit more about you and what you do and what your area of genius is?
Oh, sure. Thank you. Thank you. Well, as you mentioned, president and owner of PRPR Public Relations. We are a 25-year plus agency that specializes exclusively in speakers, consultants, and nonfiction authors. Within that market, we even niche further into those speakers, consultants, and nonfiction authors that are looking to position themselves in front of a B2B audience. They want to build credibility with owners, entrepreneurs, executives, the C-suite audience. We do this mainly through article placements in trade, industry, and association magazines. Of course, being a full service agency, public relations agency, we work with newsstand magazines, daily newspapers, podcasts, social media, the full spectrum. We were founded by Pam Lontos, a speaker, consultant, and in her own right, an author in her own right. Actually, she and her husband, Rick Dudnick, founded the agency, and that's where the PRPR comes from. It was Pam and Rick forming a public relations agency. And so that's where PRPR comes from, Pam and Rick Public Relations. They founded the agency in the late 90s, and then I joined the agency in '05. Then when Pam and Rick wanted to retire in 2011, I bought the agency from them since it was so well branded and so well established, had such a great reputation. I bought the agency from them, and that's kind of when I changed it, the PRPR, since it couldn't be Pam and Rick anymore. I changed it to PRPR, Public Relations Producing Results. That's our tagline these days. So
Nice, nice. So you've been doing this work for, 2005. That means you've been doing it for almost 20 years.
yeah,
So
myself
you've,
personally, yeah, the agency 25 years,
yep,
myself about 20 years or so.
yeah. So I know that you're like me and you've seen some stuff. And one of the areas that I've seen really transform is this idea of establishing credibility and how public relations ties into that. This
Yeah.
is not your grandmother's public relations where you are, putting out a press release and checking off a box and calling it a day. There's an actual content strategy around what you do. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Well, and like you said, not your grandmother's anymore. There's just, such a spectrum. There's a upper slip. Speaking of grandmother, there's so many avenues to get noise out there these days, and with social media and I talk about seen a lot. I remember back when social media started and when we were first doing social media 10, 15 years ago, we were building part of our social media packages. We would build 8 profiles for people. Not only sites like Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, but we were building them on Fastpace and Names. And do you remember these platforms that have now, gone the way
Gone
of the
by, yep,
when
gone the way
yeah,
of the dodo bird.
yeah, that have all filtered themselves out.
Yep.
And only the cream floats to, well, not only the cream, but hopefully the cream floats to the top and you can
Yep.
sort through them. But we would build up to 8 profiles for people. And so you kind of sort through all of that. But even with AI these days, especially, there are so many ways, and so much of it is fake. So much of it is so hard to tell what's real out there. But the one way to tell what is real, the one way to establish your credibility, the one way that your audience is going to know that what you're saying is credible, that you are the established authority, that you have the stamp of endorsement, is not to just put out the story, but to be a part of the story.
Yes.
And that's the thing about the article placements in the magazine. You're a part of the story. You're not just taking an ad. You're not just putting out a press release that anybody or everybody can send out a press release these days. There's so many press release mills out there. There's so many, sites on the internet where anybody can put a press release on any subject of any quality, with any spelling errors and any grammatical errors on them. Nobody's editing them. But when you're a part of the story, when the editor has deemed your content worthy to be a part of their magazine, when you have the byline in the magazine, when your article is a part of the magazine, that's the credibility. That's that stamp of endorsement. That's when the reader is going to say, okay, this is the go-to authority. This is the thought leader. This is the person I can trust to bring into my company to help me lead the way. And that's the major difference, is getting another person, not just you putting out your message, but getting another person to tell your story for you.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And one of the things that struck me working with you, especially when we started working together, I think it was like 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's this idea of a slow burn. So it is getting into publications that are in your industry, that are where right fit clients read. It's not about, hey, I got placed in Entrepreneur Inc. magazine. And not that's not a goal that they can achieve, and they can
Oh,
achieve it
yeah.
with you,
Yeah.
but they have to start somewhere. And starting in these publications where, again, it's peers that can recognize your thought leadership, that can follow some of your advice, that are clients that would hire you, that are associations that would hire you as a speaker, to get your content in there. To me, that's a better use of time, especially in the initial stages, if you haven't really created any content, or you're just starting out with establishing your credibility.
Sure.
So what are some tips that you give individuals that are starting with you to get them into that mindset of, this is the path that can actually lead to the bigger picture?
Sure. Well, it depends on their target market, first of all.
Right.
If their target market is the business leader, the C-suite level entrepreneur, executive, then we can help them. The principles that we apply can apply to anybody, regardless of who their target market is. Those we work with are wanting the B2B market, but there are magazine genres for everybody, there are women's magazines, men's magazines, parenting magazines, retiree magazines. So, just because we only work with B2B magazines, that doesn't mean what we do can't be applied to anybody else. So,
Right.
the principles in my book, you can, take it and apply it to anything else. Just, you can't, don't give me money if that's your market, if that's not your market. I'm only going to take your money if you want the B2B market.
Right, right.
But so um, I'm sorry, going back.
Yeah, so
I,
when someone's first starting with you and they're like,
oh,
"Hey, I want to get
yeah.
placed an entrepreneur," and you're like, "Okay, here are the
And
steps we have to take to get there,"
sure.
especially around, and this is where you and I work together. Now, I create content all the time. I mean, I'm on my fifth book. You know,
Yay.
I felt like I was old hat at it, and yet I learned so much from you on how to create that content and to not only determine what my topic was going to be and actually plan it out, but then what I was going to cover within the article so that, you know, it was a taste of my expertise, a taste of my area of genius. Talk about that a little bit, because I think you have like a process to help people go through that.
Sure, sure. Well, and you're right. I mean, being an entrepreneur is sweet and sexy. It's, glamorous. It's something to brag to your mother about. But, it reminds me of, when John Strzelecki, author of The Why Cafe, bestseller, was a client of ours, and he called me up one day. I'd sent him some placements, and he called me up one day and he's like, Russell, stop the presses. This is wonderful. I'm going to be world famous. You got me in Laundry Today magazine. Forget the Wall Street Journal, forget Entrepreneur Magazine. And Laundry Today is an association magazine for industrial launderers.
Right.
And, he's like, my mother's going to be so proud. Laundry Today magazine. And I'm like, thanks, John. Anything else I can do for you? He says, no, I just saw that and I thought it was hilarious. So a couple weeks later, he calls me up and he's like, hey, Russell, can you get me in Laundry Today every month? I'm like, why, John? What happened? And he got his largest private consulting contract from the company that does all the laundry for the Kaiser chain of hospitals because they read his article in Laundry Today magazine. It's things like entrepreneur are sweet and sexy and they sound great when you're being introduced to the stage, when
Right.
you're when that meeting and event planner is saying, and our next speaker is, and here they are, and you'll recognize their name from Entrepreneur as quoted in the Wall Street Journal. But
Right.
honestly, what gets you to that stage, what gets you to that platform, what's going to give that meeting planner the idea to hire you is seeing you in that association magazine, because they
Yes.
know that credibility, going back to the idea of building credibility, getting that stamp of endorsement. They know when that editor puts your article in that association magazine, in that trade journal, that your content is applicable to their audience, because that editor's
Yes.
only going to choose your article. Editors aren't wasting column inches these days. Column inches are precious to be in their magazine. So they're
Yes.
only going to run your article if it applies to their readership. And that meeting planner is only going to choose you to speak to their audience, knowing that if your article is in that magazine, because the readership and their audience are the same group of people. So
Right.
they know that meeting planner knows you're a safe bet. They know they're going to get a pat on the back for bringing you in because you're already got that credibility, that stamp of endorsement, because you've already appeared in their trade magazine, in their association magazine. And
Yes.
you talk about that slow burn, that building that frequency and repetition, that seeing your name over and over again through those trade and industry magazines. We can get you placed multiple times. The HR director can see your name in Sherms. They can see your article in their HR magazine. They can also see your article in their widget manufacturing magazine. So they
Right.
can say, oh, here they are in my industry magazine where, we make widgets, but now here their article is also in my HR magazine. Wow, here's a double endorsement. Here's twice the credibility, that they're the appropriate person. A lot of your newsstand magazines and a lot of your daily newspapers, those writers, reporters, and freelancers that would interview you, their editors will tell them they can't use the same source for 90 days. We've got a writer with Entrepreneur Magazine that's calling us up constantly saying, "Hey, who you got that's new? Who you got that I haven't talked to for a while?" Because his
Right.
editor says you can't use the same person for 90 days. So
Yep.
he's always scrambling, looking for news sources. But editors of those trade and industry magazines, if they get good feedback, if they get an article that they know the readers like, they'll ask for it month after month after month. Well, when placing your articles, after we worked together and we were doing your third, fourth, fifth article, we had a lot of editors that would say, "Hey, we love Lisa's stuff. We get great feedback off of Lisa's articles. Don't pitch us anymore when Lisa's got a new article. Just send it to us, because our editors and with all of our with all of our authors we work with, after getting their third or fourth article, we develop what we call a send directly list."
Yep.
And it's a non-pitch, just, "Oh, we know these editors love Lisa's articles. Here's a new one, send it out." And we know they'll run it. So yeah, we
Yeah,
built those send directly lists for each of our authors. So
that's awesome.
got quite
And
long.
yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that I did notice is this focusing on trade publications. It's this idea of like 6 degrees of separation. So I was asked to provide my expertise for a New York Times article.
Mhm.
And I contribute that to your work, because I don't see how they would have ever found me. But it was this frog hop of logic that I got to this one editor, and I asked her, "How did you hear about me?" And she said, "Oh, well, I heard it from another editor." Okay,
Yeah.
that's weird.
Oh
Okay, so
yeah.
2 editors know me, and that editor had seen something that you had placed in another magazine. So it was this convoluted but still
Yeah.
path. It wasn't, I got an entrepreneur and then New York Times called me. No, no. And I know the editor-in-chief at Entrepreneur, Jason. I actually follow him and I talk to him. And I've never been placed an entrepreneur, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, being in publications where my community is, where I can actually make an impact. And like you said, that is where people are going to hire me. People in Entrepreneur are probably not going to hire me. They go, "That's nice," and they put the magazine aside. But
Yeah.
people in these trade publications like Laundry Today will actually go, "This is the person we need. This is perfect for right now."
Yeah.
Or if you continue, like you said, to have this content that provides thought leadership, then you can have this build of content within these publications that helps when those right fit clients are ready to hire someone like you. They've already seen your investment in their community.
Yeah.
And that's where that relationship and trust comes into play.
Yeah. When you're in their magazine, they already know your content is applicable. They
Yes.
already know you identify with their industry, and it's years ago when I used to present to groups on publicity, I always used to joke about, when you're staying in a hotel room, everybody always used to want to be in USA Today. And I used to joke about how, you have to be in USA Today is great, sweet, sexy, all that, but you used to have to hope they didn't step over it on their way out of the hotel room, because that was the only place people read USA Today.
Right.
And then for a while it was Huff Post. Everybody wanted to be in the Huffington Post, and there were, something like 24 different categories of Huff Post. I always used to say, you used to have to hope that they would click on it when the article you were in was at the top. because chances are they wouldn't scroll down far enough, but
Right.
these days it's hard to say, it's like, okay, you have to hope that your tweet is at the top, otherwise they're not going to see it, or, but,
And yeah, and you never know when things like that, I had been on Twitter for years and years, and the one tweet that went viral that was picked up by BuzzFeed was just an off the cuff remark about the final Big Bang Theory episode.
oh, wonderful.
And I was like, but that's ooh, that I'm a content strategist, like, but it was like, oh, that's so funny. And I was like, ooh. So things like that. I mean, people do this social chasing, right? Where they think, oh, if I can get this viral or I can get picked up by this. And to me, those flashes in the pan are great for your ego
Yeah,
and not much else.
no,
It's getting into, like like your author mocked laundry today until he was like, oh, this actually made me a ton of money. Huh.
yeah,
This is a
yeah,
good strategy. And at the end of the day, we're trying to get speaking engagements, we're trying to get new clients, and we're trying to get known for something. And it's not about being famous, it's about having that credibility within your community and your industry.
and
And that
you,
has a
you
lot more meat to it.
you hit on a couple things there, and it's as a mutual friend of ours always says, do you want to build your ego or do you want to build your business? Do you want to feed your ego or do you want to feed your family?
Right.
And I love what you said there. It's you can chase these things down all that you can run around trying to chase down. But as I always say, it's publicity 101 is knowing who your target market is.
Yes.
What's the low hanging fruit? Not that you exclude other markets, but who is your target market? Whose pain can you solve, and who's going to pay you to solve their pain? And publicity 102 is, where is your target market? Where are they already? And then position yourself in front of them. Don't just put noise out there hoping they'll find you. Know who they are and where they are, and then position yourself in front of them. And if
Yes.
your market is those B2B decision makers, those C-suite level decision makers, they're reading their trade, industry, and association magazines. And build your credibility, get that stamp of endorsement by placing an article in those trade, industry, and association magazines. And then you're not chasing them, you're leading them back to you. You're
Yes.
taking them and saying, I'm over here, come find me. Because at the end of each of the article is going to be your bio paragraph, that says, I'm a speaker, I'm a consultant, I'm an author. And at the end of the bio paragraph is that call to action that, for more information, click here. To buy my book, please go to talk about your next event, please visit. And it brings them back to you, which,
Yes.
as by the time you place 40, 50, 100 or more, as you have, 100 or more articles out there, it is phenomenal for organic SEO, because you've got all these association and websites out there with your article on them, all linking back to your article.
Yeah.
And so when people are Googling you, talk about credibility, to see all these well-established, creditable business associations with your article all over them, sending everybody right back to your website, that's instant credibility. Whether
Yes.
you've been doing it for 3 months or 3 years or 30 years, because it's important for people who've been in this business for a long time to keep up publicity. because there's people coming up behind you trying to take that business away from you,
Yep.
so you have to stay on top as well. But it's great organic SEO.
Oh,
Um,
yes, for sure. You're not doing a hope and a prayer that somehow you have the right keywords to get you to the top of the search. You're taking control of your own destiny and
yeah,
creating the content that leads back to you.
yeah,
And if you're unsure of where you are with that process, Google yourself and see what comes up.
yeah. Oh, definitely. Patricia Fripp, longtime client, worked with her for many, many years, and I asked her one time, I said, not that I'm looking a gift horse in the mouth, Patricia, but, I got to say, don't you have, aren't you well enough established, that not that I want you to go anywhere, but, why do you need publicity? You're Patricia Fripp. And she said, I've got to tell you, Russell, but I'll do apologies to my British accent. She says, she'd said she had done the same convention every year for like, 5, 7 years. She'd done the same convention. And one year she was going through her calendar and she realized it was, getting to be, looking at the next year. And she realized she didn't have about that time blocked out. So she called the association just to say, hey, looking at my calendar for next year, didn't have you on it. Are we, looking? And the meeting planner wasn't the person she'd been working with for the past umpteen years. And it was a new
Uh,
person in the
yep,
role.
yep.
And the new person just said, Patricia, who?
Hmm.
And she went, I need to do publicity. I
Yeah,
need to make sure this person knows who I am. And,
yes.
because they had their own ideas of who the speakers should be. And they were going to bring all the speakers from their old association over and that they were used to. So, nothing is assured in this business.
No, no,
So,
nothing is assured. And that's a
yeah,
really good point too, that you have to stay on it because players change. And so you're establishing your credibility every single time. And
yeah,
it's this, again, that slow burn, but and the slow burn, you have to continue to feed the fire. You can't just
yeah,
let it die. You have to continue to put wood in.
yeah.
Um, to get that flame going. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
The old
Yep.
adage of frequency and repetition, having them see your
Yes.
name over and over and over again,
Yes.
build that top of mind awareness to establish credibility. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Russell, if people want to get in a hold of you to learn more about your services, to have a consultation call about how you can help them, how can they get in touch with you?
sure, you bet. Real easy. It's prpr.net. My staff always says I sound like I'm advertising an Italian restaurant, but it's Papa Romeo, paparomeo.net,
Awesome.
prpr.net.
Fantastic. Russell, thank you so much for being on today. This was amazing, as always, your
Thank you.
wisdom, and just reminding me about, you got to stay on it. You got to keep feeding the fire in order to keep that credibility going because things are changing at such a rapid rate. And people's attention spans are not what they used to be. So you
I'm sorry,
can't,
what?
people's attention spans are not what they used to be.
Kidding.
So, oh, good one. Ah, Russell, you got me. You got me. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Russell, for being here. And thank you to our audience for watching. Again, my name is Lisa Apolinsky, and I've said this before and I will say it again. Digital marketing, public relations, authority power, establishing credibility, it is like a climb with no summit. Wherever you are in your journey, you still have 100% to go. So keep going. We'll see you next time.